Hello.
Yes, you're audible. Please carry on. Thank you.
Okay, madam. Thank you. Thank you so much. You have given opportunity to me speak about that is right now. That is the important topics you have chosen: sexual harassment and workplace and child abuse.
Yes, sir.
Madam, I'm actually I'm a relative from the education field, so I would like to discuss this issue. That is the important things with regard to the Supreme Court judgment and guideline issued in 1997 to provide the effective enforcement of the basic human rights of gender equality and guarantee against the sexual harassment and abuse, more particularly against the sexual harassment at workplace. The UGC has issued a circular that create the protective environment for women. Keeping the UGC and Supreme Court guidelines, constituted a committee by Vigyan Universities, and universities recommended the Sexual Harassment Committee consist of members of the faculty, administrator, students, representative and representative of the students, NGO representative as well. As for the recent guidelines of the UGC, all the university to create a page on their website to help the victim, students and teacher to lodge a complaint with registrar, principal or the head of the institutions. That is, I know that is the many of the provisions are mentioned in a different places, and always that is monitored by the UGC regulations in university levels. But I know in practical situations that is not good. So ultimately we have only one formulas right now to protect the women as per the history of the India, and in many places that is a holy books is mentioned that yatra naryastu pujyante ramante tatra devata. On these lines we can resolve the problems right now, especially in India.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insight. Can we move on to the next speaker? All right. So we move on to our next speaker, who is also our chief guest, Ms. Chrissy Skies, the founder of My Body is My Body. Hello, Chrissy. Welcome to the session. My Body is a social organization working across the globe to educate people about child abuse and its consequences. The organization has a specially designed curriculum for kids that imparts education and promotes awareness through the medium of songs, simple songs which the kids can understand. Chrissy, before you tell us about the program, let me share the question we have for you today. Child abuse is often at the hands of someone closely known. How do we identify this, and how do we train our children to prevent it? In addition to this, there's another question that we'd like to ask you. That do you think domestic abuse of children has increased because of the COVID crisis?
Okay, I'll answer the second one first, if that's okay. And
sure.
the answer to that. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Child abuse and domestic abuse has definitely increased due to COVID. Because it just adds to all the pressures, you know, that people have got pressures on earning money, having to stay in the home, and it's just escalated. All our helplines in England have gone up probably 30–40% to what they normally are. So yes, we are really, really having a massive problem, and I think this will be worldwide. Now, as you say, the people that abuse our children are usually people that the statistics say 95% of children that are sexually abused are abused by people they know, love and trust. Okay, so that is either people in the immediate family or people that we leave our children with. that we know and trust. And this happens because people that, pedophiles, they will work with the families, work with communities, and work their way in so that people do trust them. They will go out of their way to help and earn your trust and the child's trust. So the way that we can help to prevent this, and I'm not saying that we can prevent all sexual abuse, but it would be really nice to be able to do that. We need to teach our children, and we need to teach our parents as well, because it's no good teaching a child to say, this is happening to me, and the parents not listening. So in tandem, we need to educate both parents and children. And do you want me to explain the My Body program a little? Yeah. So basically it works like this. There are 6 different songs, each with a message and an objective. To quickly go through them, the My Body song teaches that your body is your own and it only belongs to you. And you have private parts and nobody should be touching those private parts. So it doesn't take any innocence away from a child. We're not teaching them about sex or anything like that. We're teaching them that they have a body and nobody should be touching their private parts. There's only 2 times that this would ever happen: when you're young and mommy and daddy are bathing you, but you learn to do that as you grow up, or if you have to go to the doctor and have to have medicine there. Apart from that, nobody should ever be touching your private parts. So it's just a basic, simple rule, and we do the My Body song with that. Second song is called If It Don't Feel Right, Don't Do It, where we teach our children to listen to their feelings, because we all know that if something's wrong, we can feel it. If somebody makes us feel uncomfortable, we can feel that. So we tell children to listen to your feelings, and if somebody is wanting you to do something or wanting you to go somewhere where you know you're not supposed to do that, then listen to those feelings, because they're important. And you can also include peer pressure in all of this, because we know that sexual abuse is not only with adults, it's with other children. So we need to emphasize peer pressure and saying no, and not going with other people and not doing things that make us feel uncomfortable. The third song is called the What If game, where we teach children to say no in different circumstances. So I always say to parents and teachers, with this song, use what's going on in your community, because every community is different, and you have different scenarios going on. But you read the paper and then look at situations and say to your child, what would you do if this happened to you? And give them ideas so that they're not confronted with a serious scenario and they don't know how to deal with it. That's the biggest problem with kids. And so we need to educate. Education is the key to stopping abuse.
Right.
The fourth song's called If You've Got a Problem, Tell Someone. So encouraging children that we have to talk about this. And this is where parents and teachers come in, saying you can talk about these situations. I was sexually abused from the time I was 4 by my babysitter, and I never told anyone till I was 30, because I never knew that it was okay to tell. You know, you always feel that you're the only child this is ever happening to, and that people will look at you or think that you're terrible or that it was your fault or anything like that. So we have to educate children on talking about problems, and not only abuse, all their problems. We have to open those lines of communication. So it's really important. The fifth song is talking about love, because a lot of children come from very different backgrounds. And so a child that's been neglected may not know that they're being neglected. They might just think that's how life is, you know, I don't get fed, I don't brush my teeth, because nobody's ever taught me to do that. So we need to show children what love is and how important it is to look after each other, so that's that song. And then the last song in the program is called Say No to Secrets. Now,
Yes.
This is very important because abuse thrives in secrecy. Abusers will always tell, whether it's abuse in the workplace or abuse at home, they will threaten the person that they're abusing and say, if you tell, I'm going to hurt your family, or I'm going to hurt you, or people won't believe you, or, they'll come up with so many different excuses. So again, we need to educate both parents and children and teachers how to deal with this subject of secrecy. And again, open the lines of communication for all children so they know it's safe to tell, safe to talk, and safe to say no. So that's basically the program in a nutshell. I didn't know if you wanted me to do one of the songs to give you an example of how easy they are to teach the children.
I have gone through I've gone through these songs myself, and I've really enjoyed, and I've played them with my kids as well.
Oh,
probably
good.
we can have another session where we could, dedicate it to all songs that you've done, and we do it together with the
Brilliant.
kids, and probably they can teach their schoolmates when they go back to school.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that's going to be wonderful.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chrissy. Thank you so much. So before we move on with our session and we move to our next speaker for the day, I'll also like to share something about child abuse and its long-term consequences. Of lately, one of my friends, like just before the lockdown, one of my friends opened up to me, and she mentioned how she was sexually abused by a very close relative when she was just 13 years old. So she could not even express the kind of grief, the trauma, the disappointment, the feelings of resentment that she underwent in that phase. And till date, even after say like 20 years of the incident, the scar is still deep inside her. So it's not only the phase in which you are abused, you are mentally and physically, at the bottom, but it also has a long-term effect on the overall well-being, which could even take, at times it could even take a lifetime to heal. So it's very important for us as parents to make our kids understand how important it is to keep yourself safe, protected all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chrissy. Wonderful. Moving on to our next speaker, let me welcome Advocate Sumitra Chaudhary, practicing lawyer at the Supreme Court of India. Advocate Chaudhary is a gender champion and has been actively working for the cause of preventing sexual harassment at workplace. The children issues are at the heart of Advocate Chaudhary, and she has been mobilizing activists around the globe on the same issue. So, Advocate Sumitra Chaudhary, before handing over the mic to you for further discussion, I'd like to ask you now, since the offices are working from home, most of us, we've been working from home for over 2 months now. So do you think that the meaning and definition of workplace harassment has changed? What all does it include, and how should it be protected? Are there any measures which the companies can take to prevent this kind of harassment that's happening with the workers who are working remotely for quite long now? Over to you, Sumitra Chaudhary. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, am I audible to you all?
Yeah, very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Namrata. Thank you for organizing this wonderful webinar. A very relevant question that you've asked me. Definitely, the number of harassment cases have gone up and they've been reported too. So the general mentality is that when we are at office, there is a certain kind of restraint that we have, and we are bound to behave in a certain way. since we are worried about the repercussions being in public. But now that we are all on computers and working from home, there's a certain level of informality that has creeped in. And this has actually given an opportunity to the abusers. Maybe they were abusers earlier also, or maybe they were people who did not have the guts to, get into such an abuse. But now, since there is just a virtual world, since they're on a virtual world and they think that there's just a computer or a platform in between, they can take the leverage and take the conversations to a personal level. So they've gathered the courage to indulge into talks which they would not have normally engaged into if they were in office. So definitely sexual harassment cases have gone up since lockdown, and home has become the extended workplace for all of us. But this rise in cases have actually opened up a Pandora's box for the employers. Sexual harassment on virtual and electronic mode has become quite a norm. This is because a lot of people have gone onto the social media, has gone onto the social network, who probably never had the time to get onto it, or probably didn't have the options to, understand the digital revolution. So maybe even offices did not give a lot of opportunity for them to be on digital platform. But now with lockdown, since they got into a digital platform, it has given them a whole lot of opportunities. So I will try to explain certain acts that constitute sexual harassment through examples. The good part is that our POSH Act was so visionary, although the act was enacted in 2013 and Vishaka guidelines had come in 1997. It took a long time to enact the act, but then it has been a very broad act, as in it has tried to incorporate as much as possible. So even if you look at the workplace definition of our act, it has included in itself the home or dwelling unit. So even through various other cases wherein sexual harassment had happened, the workplace definition was extended time and again by the Honorable Supreme Court. So the ways in which virtual harassment occurs online. So I will just tell you.
Hello, can you hear us?
Am I audible? Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, so I'll carry on. Okay. So the
there's some network connectivity issue that's happening. Maybe because of that, the voice is breaking, but I think.
Okay, if in general I'm audible, then I'll continue with what I was saying. So the ways in which virtual harassment occurs on computer or through the virtual medium, I would say something like objectionable text messages that probably most of the women or girls or students would have received. So suddenly somebody who had a very formal relationship with you, that is office colleague or your college mate, they start using words like dear, sweetheart, babe, doll. So that is not allowed. As in, if you feel uncomfortable hearing those words, you should immediately tell the same to the person who's using the word. Because if you don't say no at the very beginning, they will definitely try to cross those lines. There have been instances where people would start with, for example, if you've been addressing a person in a certain way for last so many months or years or weeks of your knowing each other. So I'll just use an example, sir. So if you've been addressing somebody with the name sir, and they suddenly start saying that, oh, you know what, don't address me as sir, I am your friend. So you should be able to understand that this is a beginning of something that you would not want to get into. Another thing that virtually, since it is online, people are taking the liberty and leverage to ask you to commit for certain dinner dates or lunch dates after the lockdown is being lifted. So please do not encourage that, because that could be a start off to an incident of sexual harassment. Then people are taking leverage to ask you about your relationship status, or your sex life. In case of married people, please don't get into those discussions. Don't encourage those discussions, because it might eventually lead to something, unless and until, you know, of course, you have another interest. But otherwise, yes, this could lead to sexual harassment online. People sending you friend requests and repeated messages. So on social media, since the number of people on social media has grown almost 200 times, so you might be getting unsolicited friend requests wherein you do not have any mutual friends, or you know, you may not know the person and you do not want to accept it, but then you continuously have a following on your social media page by the same person, commenting on each and every post and asking you to accept their friend request. Yes, that would lead to sexual harassment. That will be considered as a incident of sexual harassment. Also, before I go on to another type of sexual harassment, I would like to tell you that for sexual harassment, it is not necessary that it has to be many incidents. It could be just one incident that can also be taken as sexual harassment. So any gender biased comments, using of inappropriate language, since workplace has intruded our homes, so calling at odd hours is another problem which is being faced by a lot of women. So unusual chat and video call requests, that too at odd hours. People, without even realizing that what is the time on the clock, they will just start calling you on video calls. So late night text on the pretext of work, but then while discussing work, diverting it to personal topics, that is also a very common type of a sexual harassment. Then there is sharing of inappropriate images or content on group chats and private chats. Kindly do not share images which are not appropriate, which you would not have done if you were present there in person. Sharing of any sexist jokes or making sexist statements on calls or group chats, that also constitutes sexual harassment. So in a nutshell, virtual harassment would be sending unsolicited friend requests, or you know, threatening email, threatening somebody that, you know, I would do something, or I would spread rumors or negative publicity, making defamatory comments about somebody in public discussion areas, using abusive language. If somebody is not accepting your social request, social friend request, then, you know, going to their inbox and leaving a very dirty message or a dirty image, that amounts to sexual harassment. Then impersonating a person and trying to you know, defame them in various ways, that also constitutes harassment. Any pornographic material that you would share constitutes sexual harassment. So Vishaka judgment was a great judgment that our Honorable Supreme Court had given. And this has given an opportunity to the legislative to enact the Sexual Harassment Act. And it is very widely put in some incidents. It's a very small act, but it very clearly says that what all constitutes sexual harassment. So Section 2N of our Act states what sexual harassment is. And it includes 5 things, as in physical contact and advances, demand or request for sexual favors, making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, or any other unwelcome physical, verbal, and non-verbal conduct. So here I would want everybody to remember these 3 words: physical, verbal, and non-verbal. So sexual harassment is not only physical, but it can be verbal and non-verbal also. So I'll just give you some examples of physical conduct, physical sexual harassment. So it could be anything to do with physical violence, sexual assault. Physical contact, as in it's a unwelcome touching, patting, pinching, hugging, or just stroking. In office environment, trying to block somebody, block someone's way, or making sexual advances. Verbal conduct. Okay, this is very confusing because a lot of people do not understand verbal and non-verbal sexual harassment. They think that it is, you know, very casual and it was just a very simple thing and it did not harm a person. So how can it be a sexual harassment? Please don't be into such a misconception. It is sexual harassment if you comment on your co-worker's appearance, age, private life, then it amounts to sexual harassment. Any sexual comments, stories, and jokes, that amounts to sexual harassment. Sexual advances, whether it is explicit or implicit, any sexual advances, any repeated unwelcome social invitations, if you insult your coworker based on their sex, or any kind of remarks or rumors, they all fall under verbal sexual harassment. Now coming to non-verbal sexual harassment. So it is mostly to do with your body language and your eyes and your gestures. So display of sexually explicit or suggestive material. So if you're trying to do a certain act in third person, as in trying to show pornography to somebody indirectly, sexually suggestive gestures, so you do some actions which suggest something very lewd, then stalking, whistling, and unwanted SMSs, emails containing sexual contents also form part of it. So all these have been already detailed out in our Sexual Harassment Act. So it is very important that we all know what not to do in so that we are saved of getting an allegation of sexual harassment. You know, it becomes very easy to say later on that, oh, I didn't know that constitutes sexual harassment. So this is not an excuse. Ignorance is definitely not an excuse. You have to make yourself aware, and you should know what constitutes sexual harassment and what does not constitute sexual harassment. For employees especially, or students, I would also like to tell you that there are two different types of legally recognized types of sexual harassment that happens. So one is quid pro quo and one is hostile environment. So quid pro quo is something that, you know, either your boss, this is normally sexual harassment happens when somebody is in a dominant position or is able to abuse their power. So if you're in a job and, you know, by promising you some kind of a promotion or salary increase or job benefit or, you know, some other benefits, and asking for a sexual favor in return, it may not be direct, it may be indirect. That is a quid pro quo situation wherein you are being offered something for giving something. All right. Similarly, threatening you for not doing a sexual favor, even that also falls under quid pro quo. There is hostile work environment. So what happens when somebody wants to, you know, take out a favor from you? What they will do, they will try to make you feel so hostile and create such an environment for you that you are isolated, you are not being given that importance, and you will certainly feel that, you know, why am I being left out? What is my mistake? The only thing is that the person wants to make you feel that you have to go by their rules, otherwise there is no place for you. So that is another way that sexual harassment happens. So what our Sexual Harassment Act mandates? It is the employer's role to ensure that there is zero tolerance to any form of harassment in office. So for this, they have to ensure that there is adequate training and information to the employees. And if a complaint is, and they are supposed to place posters of sexual harassment helpline numbers very prominently, whether it is notice boards or, you know, circulating emails, so that employees know where to reach out in case a sexual harassment incident happens. Then when an incident happens and it is being reported, it must be very fairly investigated, and it must be handled very confidentially. Sexual harassment complaints cannot be the talk of the floor. You know, it cannot go into the floor or the other employees and intimidate the complainant. So it is important for the employers to provide protection and support to those employees who are being harassed. What is the employee's role? Employee's role is to know and read the policy that exists in their organization on sexual harassment, be aware of what constitutes an inappropriate behavior, seek help as soon as they think that either they have been, harassed, or they think that somebody in their company has been harassed who's not able to gather the courage to, go. Then document the incident. See to it that you have some kind of evidence before you go and report it. Try to collect that evidence. The Supreme Court has been very strongly, penalizing the employers who did not comply with this act. So a lot of employers failed to constitute ICC or did not conduct the investigation properly. So there was one case where the Supreme Court had penalized an employer with 9 crores as fine. So they are very strict about it, and they take this very seriously. Sexual harassment is taken very seriously. Now, what is the impact of sexual harassment? I think that there's a lot of self-blame and guilt that a woman goes through when an incident of sexual harassment happens. Right from being distressed to, having mood swings, insecurity, anxiety, depression, feeling of isolation, feeling of intimidation. These are some of the emotional behaviors that she shows. And then having restlessness, headaches, and stress-related ailments, stomach ailments. These are some of the ailments that she will show physically. It becomes very difficult for a victim to be socially engaging or interacting. So they end up limiting their social interactions. They are insecure and feel threatened all the time. So it is important that we all be aware of what constitutes sexual harassment and make others aware who are around us, who may not be aware what sexual harassment is, so that this phenomena can be stopped, as it really hampers the productivity and growth of a woman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Advocate Chaudhary. That was wonderful and great insight. We'll move on to our next speaker, who is Ms. Archana Mittal, who is a counselor and a social activist. Ms. Mittal has been working closely with the victims of domestic violence and has been actively involved in the rehabilitation activities. She'll give us an insight on the issues of domestic violence in India. Ms. Archana Mittal, I request you to unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Hello, thank you.
Sumitra and Pankaj Trivedi, all of you have been really, really informative and talked about different kind of harassment towards children, women, in a very apt way. Homes are supposed to be the safe place for women. And the definition, by definition of domestic violence, we understand a woman is supposed to be protected, taken care of in her own homes. But are they really safe in their own homes? I doubt it, because the NCRB data shows that every third woman is subjected to violence in any state, in any form, whether it is sexual, whether it's financial abuse, whether it's emotional abuse. And when I speak to the victims, when I talk to these females who come to me, where I provide them with listening space, the first thing I ask, and I come to know, is that they don't know the laws of the country. They don't know whom to approach when these kind of situation strikes them. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to get the help. They don't know the financial implications of when they move out and seek justice from the courts. Domestic violence was always there. And we have, DV 2005, which gave powers for women to come out and seek justice from courts. We all know that it takes years together to get justice. We all know it doesn't help them really, because there are gaps and cracks in the system. Though we have very good lawyers, though we have very good systems, but then again, the systems have failed women. We talk about Vishaka guidelines, we talk about all the laws of the country, but do we talk about the homemakers of the country? How are they supported? And during this COVID-19 situation, their situation has become really worse. With all kind of support system taken away, they locked down in their own homes, and most of them, with their own abusers, they don't know whom to connect, whom to contact. I will talk about an instance. A woman has been coming to me since last 1 year seeking help. As I said, I just provide them a listening space, and if there is a need to be linked to any systems, I just connect them. All of a sudden, I stopped getting the calls because counseling is such where women don't come out and seek also. It's seen as a taboo. It's seen still, there is a stigma attached to it. So one thing leads to another. So somehow I got in touch with her and came to know that her phone was snatched away. She didn't have any means to connect with her own relatives. She didn't have any means to connect with her own friends. She didn't have any means to even seek out help. Financially, emotionally, we all know what happens. So while the government has initiated this lockdown, it didn't take into the shadow pandemic of domestic violence. Even the NCW, when it came out with the report, it says the number of calls have dropped. Reason is not that domestic violence stopped. The reason is they didn't have any access, any means to come out and seek support. So, I mean, how do we address that? A week back, I wrote a letter to WCD Ministry, to National Human Rights Commission, to a Law Commission as, what needs to be done. Like in certain parts of country, they have, taken domestic violence as a public health, you can say, pandemic, where all the civil society organizations, where all NGOs, where government's machinery itself has taken it integrated into public health systems. Though 15 days back, we can say around in April, somebody did have a petition filed in court where they asked what needs to be done. So the government, like Delhi government and Tamil Nadu government, it came out with directives where it gave the powers to the police, to the system to seek out. But our police is itself so engrossed in controlling the pandemic, regarding migrant workers, regarding other situations happening in the country. This part, domestic violence affected women, have not been really taken care of. They are left alone to their own devices to take care of themselves, to take care of what needs to be done, with loss of job, with loss of support, with loss of money come in. And even in some homes where men are used to drinking, when there is nothing, when they couldn't buy any liquor, they would just take out on their partners. So the question arises, how we come together to take care of it and to really address this issue. A very good friend of mine, she is now creating awareness. She's based out of Singapore, and she is the founder of Sushamta Foundation. She started creating videos, making women aware of laws of the country, to take care of herself, to know the laws. And this is a small bit from her side to address this issue. I'm leaving it to you all. If some suggestions come from the public, what needs to be done, I think we'll be much better off. Homes are supposed to be a safer place for women. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Mittal. Thank you so much for the insight. And I'm sure all of us, if we join hands, we can make this place a lot safer and happier for all the women out there. Thank you. Okay, now we move on to our last speaker of the day, and the speaker is Dr. Anu Mehra. She's a professor of law from the Lloyd Law College. Dr. Anu imparts education on different subjects of law and has been practicing their applicability in the real life. She's been instrumental in promoting gender sensitization among students and colleges equally. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us over here. So I'll request you to unmute yourself and give us an overview about the activities that you've undertaken and also your role in gender sensitization in the colleges. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, one and all. Basically, the objective of this webinar is to create awareness among the women and the girls that how to tackle the menace of sexual harassment at the workplace. Sexual harassment at the workplace is considered as a violation of the women's right, liberty. It creates an insecure at the hostile environment which discourages women participation in work. The Constitution of India embodies the concept of equality under Article 14 and Article 15 and the prohibition of the ground of the religion, race, caste, sex, and place of birth or any of them. As Sumitra already discussed about the ICC, the University Grant Commission Prevention, Prohibition, Redressal of Sexual Harassment of Women Employees and Students in the Higher Education Institutions Regulation 2015 provides the provisions regarding the procedure for making the complaint by the aggrieved person and conducting inquiry by the internal complaint committee. Basically, the process of making complaint under ICC is that ICC shall comply with the procedure prescribed in these regulations and the Act for making the complaint and inquiry into the complaint in a time-bound manner. The Higher Education Institute shall provide all necessary facilities to the ICC to conduct inquiry and with the privacy also. Even the process of making complaint of the sexual harassment, an aggrieved person is required to submit a written complaint to the ICC within the 3 months from the date of the incident. And in case, suppose there are series of incidents within a period of the 3 months, then from the date of the last incident will be considered. Even the provided where such complaint cannot be in written. In that case, presiding officer or any other member of the ICC shall render all reasonable assistance to the person for making complaint in writing also. And ICC may for the reason of according in writing extend the time limit also if they increase the time of 3 months, but they should be given the reason also. And on the behalf of the aggrieved person, aggrieved lady, friends, relatives, colleagues, co-students, and other associates victim may file the complaint in situation where aggrieved person is not or is unable to file a complaint on the basis of the physical and the mental capacity, or even in the case of the death also. They can also file the complaint. Even the process of the inquiry is that the ICC shall, upon receipt the complaint, send the one copy of the complaint to the respondent within a period of the 7 days of such receipt. And upon the receipt of the such complaint, the respondent shall file his or her reply to the complainant along with the list of the documents, name, addresses, witnesses within the period of the 10 days. And the inquiry shall have been completed within the period of the 90 days. If suppose the 90 time will be increased, then they have to inform that what is the reason behind it. Even the inquiry report with the recommendation, if any, has to be submitted within the 10 days from the completion of the inquiry to the executive authority of the Higher Education Institute to finding out the recommendations or the findings, and should also be served to both the parties also. Even the executive authority of the Higher Education Institute shall act on the recommendation of the committee within the period of the 30 days from the receipt of the inquiry report, unless an appeal is filed within that time by the either parties, whether the respondent or by the complainant. And appeal against the finding or the recommendation of the ICC may be filed by the either of the party before the executive authority of the Higher Education Institute within the period of the 30 days from the date of the recommendation. Even if the executive authority or higher education institution decides that not act as per the recommendation of the ICC, then they shall record the written reason for the same to convey to the ICC and both the parties of the proceedings. And if the other hand, if they are decided to as per the recommendation of the ICC, then their show cause notice be answerable within the 10 days shall be served to the party against whom the action is to be decided. Even there are so many types of action can be taken, maybe they will take the action. Suppose they can take the disciplinary action, like misconduct action. They can remove them also. They can even they can other actions also. Even aggrieved party may seek conciliation in order to the such settlement matter. No monetary settlement should be made in the basis of the conciliation. This is the main process. There should be no money matter. And the identities of the aggrieved party or the victims of the offender shall not be made public in the public domain, especially during the process of the inquiry. If there are some interim redressals also, suppose in case in the offices, the transfer of the complainant or the respondent to the another section of the department to minimize the risk involved in the conduct of the intersection. If such recommendation is made by the HC, that can be possible. Even they also grant the leave to the aggrieved with the full protection of status and the benefits for the period up to the 3 months also. And restraint from the respondent for reporting or evaluating the work or performance or test or examination of the complainant. Even they warn the offenders also to keep a distance from the aggrieved party. Even I tell you one thing more, that for the in the composition of the ICC, there will be one presiding officer, 2 teaching member, 2 non-teaching member, and in case there are 1 outsider as well as the students also. One is UG, 1 PG, or if there is research scholar, they will also be part of this. But in the ICC, there should be at least half members should be women. And punishment and compensation, and anyone found by the guilty for the sexual harassment shall be punishable accordance with the service rules of the Higher Education Authority if the offender is an employee. This is all the things. This is a procedure of filing the complaint and inquiry by the Higher Education Authority. Thank you, Namrata. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the insight and explaining to us in layman language. Thanks a lot. Okay, it's 5:20 now, and the house is open for a question and answers. We already have a few questions pouring in. Prissy, we have a first question. Our first question is for you. So it's like, what is the apt age to start educating kids about child abuse?
Unmute.
Prissy, please unmute
Can you hear
yourself.
me? Yeah.
Yes. Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I've got the question.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say about 3 years old.
3 years old. Wonderful.
3
Okay.
years old, because then a child is aware of their body. I probably wouldn't do the whole program with them at 3, but you could start introducing information about secrets and telling if they've got problems and that their body is their body. But at 3, you'd still be bathing them. So you can just say, you know, mommy and daddy will bathe you, but you'll learn how to do that soon. But nobody, you come tell me if anybody touches your private parts. Or the other thing to remember is taking pictures, because we know a lot of people do those kind of things and take pictures of children nowadays. So don't let anybody take pictures of your body, and don't let anyone take you touch your private parts. So yeah, I think you can definitely start explaining from 3.
Yeah. Starting at the age of 3 is the apt age, and their minds. So reinforcement is also an important, responsibility of the parents, and should also be the responsibility of schools now. Yes, the schools are implementing these programs. They're doing it regularly, but they have to be more rigorous with it. This is my personal experience with the schools. So if we do it rigorously and we start early, so I think we can make a lot of difference.
Absolutely. And the thing is that a lot of schools feel that if they just do a program, that's it, they've done it. You know, the children will know that for the rest of their lives. You have to reinforce all the time, which is why the songs are good, because the songs are educational, but they're also fun, and you can do things with them. You can do dances with them, and the children remember the songs, so it's reinforcing all the time. That's what I say to people. Don't just do the program once, at least once every 6 months, you know, and keep teaching them and keep bringing the subject up, and they will ask loads of questions. Children love to ask questions. If you just open the lines of communication, then hopefully by the time they do get into the workplace, if we teach them right at the beginning, they'll in the workplace, you know, so they won't have to, you know, think, oh, if I say this, you know, it's wrong. People will know you can't do that. You can't say that. And hopefully we'd end up with a better society, you know, but we have to start young. And we have to teach our young parents as well.
Yes. Yeah. So our next program is most likely, yeah. Look forward to our next program with you to learn all these songs and teach our children and implement them in the schools as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'd appreciate the opportunity.
Our pleasure. Thank you. So we have next question for Advocate Sumitra Chaudhary. Ma'am, we would like to know, do NGOs fall under the Sexual Harassment Act?
Yes, NGOs do fall under the Sexual Harassment Act. So there was a case that had happened after which this was broadened and the scope was broadened, and NGO was also included to be termed as a workplace. So NGOs do fall under the Sexual Harassment Act. They are also supposed to have a ICC and take the complaints according to the Sexual Harassment Act 2013.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're running out of time. Another question for Chrissy. So Chrissy, here we go. How do we help victims of child abuse rehabilitate or come out of the trauma?
Well, rehabilitation is not my forte, but the thing is, with children, we have to give them the opportunity to know that they are not at fault, that they are not to blame, you know, that they have done nothing wrong. So I think probably Mrs. Mattel could to answer this better than I can, but we have to talk to children and we have to get them the correct help if they have been abused.
Right, thank you. Thank you so much.
I will just answer that. To rehabilitate the children, we do have a POCSO Act in place. So under that, there are certain provisions that have been made. So there are special courts who take care of these kind of incidents that has happened with the child. And they also take certain measures to ensure that, you know, the child is able to come out of their trauma as soon as possible.
Yes. Thank you. So any more questions? Just another 4 minutes to go before we close the session.
I could see a question where they're asking about the name of the organization.
Yes, yes. Please answer that for us.
Yeah, the name of the organization is Sushanta.org. They run Sushanta Foundation. This is especially for homemakers, home-based entrepreneurs, where they teach them about, you know, upgrade their skills, teach them about finance, have given a digital platform to come there and they can sell their products right from, you know, which they have made from home. Apart from that, this organization is also creating awareness videos about Domestic Violence Act, other things, women taking care of themselves, as in teaching them about compassion, teaching them about other life-enhancing skills. So this is a small initiative she has started after talking to a lot of women who have gone through it. The first and foremost is in our country and around the world, I mean, it is this violence is taken as such a normal practice that they don't even report. I mean, more than, if you see the data, more than 56% of the women, they themselves say it's okay to get beaten by their husbands. So what do you do about that? And then it leads to mental, you know, health issues. I'm a very strong advocate of mental health in a preventive mode. All the laws, everything, they are only coming into force when something goes wrong. We are not taking, you know, these actions in a preventive care mode. Why are we not teaching about compassion, about these laws right from their school days?
Yeah.
We teach our children, like Chrissy Sayak said, you know, in fact, I was also part of Childline India Foundation, where I was taking sessions on good touch and bad touch. And I'm really sorry to say, after every session, at least in the class of 43 to 4 children would come forward and say this happened with them.
Mm.
And it all starts from home. We are supposed to provide them safe homes, and they are most unsafe in their own homes.
Yeah.
Women and children. And we have all seen during this COVID-19 situation where the migrant workers have been on road, and the most affected lot has been the women. You know, I've traveled far and wide, deep interiors of our country, you know, where we are providing them nutrition, the pregnant women, supporting this initiative by Government of India of, you know, maternal and child health, taking care of their nutrition. And when a pregnant woman is given the nutrition, what she does is the glass of milk, 2 laddus, and the food she gives away to her older children. She doesn't think about her own self. And every year I met a woman, you know, it was a 6th child she was bearing. Every year she was going into pregnancy, just creating babies. They don't know, they don't even know how to voice out about their own bodies. It's not about children, it's about the women also. They don't have voices. I call them invisible women actually. And this data is not even in, you know, with NCRB, because domestic violence is not reported most of the time.
Yeah.
It only comes out when it goes out of hand actually.
Mm-hmm.
10 out of 10 women, or I can say 100 out of 100 women, till date don't know Domestic Violence Act. They don't know whom to approach. They don't know what to do. They don't know what it takes to come out. They don't have voices. They don't have agency.
Completely agree with you on that, Archana.
Could be majorly because of lack of support also.
Yes, I mean, the first support comes from home, and it doesn't come from home actually. It is so
Hello?
normalized in our culture.
Yes.
So I'm leaving you all with this question: what needs to be done actually in a collective mode?
Okay.
Really,
Thank you so much.
Namrata, since you're breaking up, I will just go ahead with the next question. I see there's a question from Arpit Pandey. He's asking, Chrissy, I think this question is directed at you. Could anyone suggest how to conceptualize child protection system and child protection issues in the institutionalization using attachment theory? So, Arpit, if you could just clarify, or if you can hear me, are you saying that you want to understand more about child protection system and how to protect the child in institutions as in hostels? Arpit, can you hear me? If you can just unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am, I'm asking for that only.
You're asking for that only.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, Chrissy.
Well, yeah, I think because that is another big problem. Wherever you get institutions that deal with children, you find
Yes.
people that want to hurt them. You know, there's a vast majority, of course, that want to work and protect the children, but you do find devious people. So again, we have to, one, educate all the people that work there on child abuse, what signs to look for, how to react when you find child abuse, what to say to a child, and also we have to educate the children. I think we have to do a balancing act between educating the adults and educating the children. It both needs to be done. And institutions, anywhere where children are left in the so-called safety of the state, we have to start protecting them, because I know that stories keep coming out all the time these kids that are just abused and have nowhere to go, have nobody to speak to. And you were talking about having a voice. The women have to have a voice. The children have to have a voice. We have to give a voice to both women and children. And the only way we can do that is by talking about this subject, about educating everyone what to do, what their rights are, and that they have a voice. I think that's the biggest thing with children, is they don't know they have a voice. They just think they have to accept it. Same as women, they think they have to accept it in the home, and they don't. We have to make it that they have a voice and they can do something, so that we can change the cycle of this abuse.
Great. Thank you, Chrissy. There's one more question for Dr. Anu Mehra ma'am. The question is that what if the university has not responded to a complaint positively? Instead, the accused starts torturing or threatening for failing the student. So, ma'am, if you could unmute yourself. We cannot hear you, ma'am. Yes.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
In case the university is not responding them, in that case, they can file the complaint also. In the police, they can file the complaint also. It doesn't mean that their ICC is not responding. Even their documents are there with the documents and with the proof. They can file the complaint, but within the 3 months. This is preferably within the 3 months. Even there is a local committee is also there. The district committee is also there. They can file the complaint there also if the ICC is not filing their complaint. It is the responsibility of the ICC.
Okay, so Swara, if you can hear me, ma'am just said that you can approach the local district complaints committee or the police directly with a complaint, because even in IPC section 354, we have a provision for complaining directly to police about sexual harassment. So you can do that. Namrata, over to you.
I'm sorry, there's so much of network disruption at my place today. Okay, okay, we'll almost at the end of a session, and I'd like to thank all of you for being such a wonderful dignitaries, for sharing the views on this very, very sensitive and burning topic of child abuse and sexual harassment at work. So work actively and make this world a better place for our children, for women, for everybody. Whether it's men, women, or anybody, let's make it a safer and a better place. And we can all do it together. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for joining in.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.